Hey, Divine Ones, it's Jerome Braggs, and it's time to answer another one of your questions. Today's question is really good. It came in my inbox a few weeks ago, and like I said, I have all of these questions that I have kind of piled up that I want to now begin to address. I've been wanting to address many of these questions, and so I'm going to begin to be doing that, and today's one of those days. So before we jump into the question, just to kind of give you kind of a heads up, my eyes are really red tonight. I just got back from the gym and was trying a new workout, and it was kind of tough. So my eyes are kind of red. It's not because I'm tired or I'm not getting any rest. It's just, I think my body is just like recentering itself after this workout. But anyway, I want to answer your question today. This question is really good. So if you all are tuning in, you want to stick in for this because this will help you. The answer will help you understand a little bit of my work and a little bit of why understanding your trauma is very important and why it may be different. My conversation around it may be different from what you've heard before. So today's question was an inbox question, and it says, "Hello, Jerome. Maybe you can clear up this very confusing idea about childhood trauma or any trauma from a person's past. Esther Hicks of Abraham Hicks says she has never been a big proponent of digging up any childhood anything because the very act of doing that activates the vibration of it, which makes it your now point of attraction. I also have heard Bashar speak of this in the same manner. So please, can you explain the different viewpoints and why these entities being channeled through Esther and Bashar would say this?" So wonderful question. And so before I answer that, I just want to give you all who are probably maybe new to me or new to this type of work who Esther Hicks, Abraham Hicks, and Bashar are. So Abraham Hicks and Bashar are channels. They channel a non-physical consciousness, just like myself. If you've been following my work a little bit, you may have heard me talk about the beloveds, who are a non-physical higher consciousness, which are really a different aspect of my higher self that I will sometimes channel wisdom through, and that have been my guides through my own journey. And have helped me in my journey of growth and living and joy and experiencing joy and healing and all of that stuff. So Abraham and Bashar are very similar to that. And if you're not familiar with them, they're great, powerful spiritual teachers. Both of those people are people I've been following for many years. I love their work. And a lot of what I teach here really aligns with them. And so I wanted to say that first, just to kind of give you a kind of heads up about who they are as a channel. So again, one of my intuitive abilities is to be a channel, which is I communicate and connect with a higher non-physical consciousness that sometimes I offer wisdom from. So having said all of that, let's get to the question. So the reason I speak about trauma is because, and so there's a difference. So again, when I'm talking about trauma, I'm talking about what trauma is from your soul's perspective, what it is from your higher self's perspective. And the difference here is, and the difference in that and how it's usually spoken about and how it's usually addressed and how we do in our societies and our cultures mostly, is we talk about the event that happened as the trauma. So for example, if you experienced some type of childhood abuse, whether that was sexual or physical or emotional, whether you lost a limb or had an accident or lost a loved one or something like that, we view that as, in traditional culture and society, we often view that as the trauma. We talk about that as the trauma. But from the higher self, from our soul's perspective, the God aspect of ourselves, that's actually not the trauma. That's traumatizing, meaning it's what causes the trauma, but it's not the trauma itself. The trauma from the soul's perspective is what that event made you start to believe about yourself and how that event made you begin to feel about yourself. Particularly that event made you begin to have beliefs about yourself that were in resistance to or disconnected to the truth of your God self. and they begin to disconnect you from the natural vibration of yourself, which is a love vibration. So you've heard me talk about it a little bit, meaning trauma is a wound. So the actual definition, the actual word, the root word of trauma is a Greek word, and that word actually means wound. So the actual wound is not the event that happened; it's what it made you believe about yourself. Because those beliefs, those beliefs and how you feel become the filter by which you begin to see the world through you. Is what you begin to expect from the world, is how you view the world, is how you view yourself and what you begin to expect from yourself. And it's also your point of attraction that begins, because however you believe, what you believe and how you begin to habitually feel is your point of attraction. That's the frequency that you begin to offer that determines the reality that you live. So that's why I'll talk about it, because it's very important. Now, what Abraham and Bashar are actually talking about is not going back and keep rehearsing what happened to you, because that's really not important. It's important in the aspects, and you may hear me speak about it sometimes to get aware of what happened. Only the only importance it really has is the importance for helping you understand that your point of attraction was created usually by this event. It is not your fault, right? It was either you began to believe these things about yourself. You got this wound because of some external thing that happened that you couldn't stop or you couldn't control, or you didn't have the power, when you were young, you didn't have the power to say no, or to be in control of your environment to keep that from happening. So it's to help you be aware that this is not your fault, so you can start being more compassionate in your healing journey, but not to keep rehearsing it, because like they do say, like the question was saying, when you continue to talk about the trauma, you continue to talk about what happened, like you continue to talk about that you were violated in some way, or that you were abused, or whatever the case may have been with the trauma, even with me, that I was teased when I was younger, for being bigger, and that you hear me talking about that. When you continually talk about it and you haven't done the work of healing the trauma, and again, what healing basically is reconnecting yourself to the vibration of love. It's recentering yourself with that. So if you have not healed your belief system, right? So the traumas make you believe that there's something wrong with you. It may be there's something wrong with your body. There's something wrong with your identity, like your personality or your sexuality. There's something wrong with your level of intellect, like how, your education or your smarts or whatever. It makes you believe, one, that either something's wrong with you, or usually two, that you're not safe in the world somehow. And especially you're not safe to be all of yourself, that that some aspect of your being is not safe in the world. It may be your gender, it may be your color, it may be your personality, it may be your sexuality, it may be something about you is not safe. So you begin to feel that the world is not a safe place to be in, and especially not safe to be yourself. So you develop these defense mechanisms and behaviors to try to protect yourself, like hiding aspects of yourself, suppressing parts of yourself, not fully expressing yourself, not fully saying what you need to say, never fully being who you are, trying to edit yourself or rearrange some part of yourself that you think is wrong with you. Trying to fix yourself constantly. So these are kind of things that happen when you have this trauma of believing something is wrong with you, feeling like something's not safe, that you're not safe in the world and your needs aren't going to be met, right? That's important to know, because because if you don't become aware of what you believe, and you're not really paying attention to how you feel, then you're not aware of why you're not really manifesting a life that feels good to you. You don't become aware of why the relationships that you continue to attract to yourself and manifest for yourself aren't really fulfilling. You don't become aware of why you're not making the money you really want, why you're not really happy in your life, why you're not really experiencing a delicious life like your soul is supposed to be. And the only reason why that's not happening for you is because there is some unresolved trauma in your being, right? And it doesn't mean that you had some massive because we can experience trauma in the most loving of families, right? It doesn't always have to be some horrific or tremendously tragic event that happens that traumatizes you. Sometimes it could be, your parents were late a lot of times to pick you up from school, and that made you feel abandoned or rejected. Sometimes it could have been somebody just at school one day teased you about something, and it made you feel like something was wrong with you. So it doesn't have to be sometimes there are some of us that have had very horrific and tragic things that have happened to us that cause the trauma. And then sometimes it's very minor things that cause the trauma. But the trauma is important because the trauma determines your point of attraction. It actually begins to, when you believe there's something wrong with you, then you start to feel there's something wrong with you. And then you begin to manifest a reality that must mirror that, because your external reality is only ever a reflection of your internal world. And your internal world is how you feel about yourself and what you believe about yourself. Right? And so if you have trauma going in there, right? If you have a disconnection from the truth of yourself, which is you are lovable and loved unconditionally just as you are, that this world is a safe place to be and you are safe in this world, that your needs are going to be met and it's going to be easy to meet them, that you're not alone, that the universe loves you. Like, all of this is the truth that your soul knows. And that's how your soul vibrates. That's how your soul feels all the time. And if you don't feel like that, it just means there's something that's happened that there's something within you that you believe that is disconnecting you from that, right? And so there's a belief that you're holding that is in resistance to the truth of yourself. And it behooves you to become aware that you hold that belief so you can shift it, so you can change it, so you can stop believing it. So you can do the work of re-embodying the truth of yourself and manifesting a life that mirrors that. So that's really what Abraham and Bashar are talking about. And usually what most of the channels are going to talk about is really offering a higher frequency, a higher vibration. And if you have trauma in your being, right? And basically, again, trauma is not the event, it's the belief and the feeling. So if you have something inside of you that says something's wrong with you, who you are is not enough, basically, that who you are is not enough, and you feel not enough, and you feel scared, you have a lot of fear in your beings. That's what trauma does. Trauma begins to deposit shame and fear and suppression into your being. And this is important to understand, because if there's suppression in your being, you can't stay healthy. So a lot of diseases and illnesses actually come from the different places we're suppressing some aspect of ourselves because we believe that being ourselves is not safe, right? Shame drains life force energy out of yourself. And if you have a lot of shame, you can't create a life that celebrates and affirms the beauty of yourself. And if there's a lot of fear in your being, fear is a direct resistance to love, right? It's the thing that shadows love. And so you won't manifest a life when you have a lot of fear in your belief system and in your vibration. You can't manifest a life that is very joyful and very healthy and very loving, right? You've got to begin to get those fearful and shame-based beliefs and feelings out of your system. Hey, everyone watching, you got to get, I see all of you saying hello. You got to get those shame-based things and fear-based things out of your system. So that's why it's important to understand what trauma is, but not, again, I want to make this very clear, not to keep rehearsing what happened to you. That has really no benefit, to keep rehearsing how you got traumatized. The real benefit is to understand what you believe, what your wound is, what you're now believing that's not the truth of yourself, what you feel that is not joy and love, and then doing the work of reconnecting yourself to the love and joy-based being that you are. And if you just keep going, right? If you keep pressing on and making these vision boards and going to these manifestation classes, and you still hold these beliefs, like it's just like you're on and you hold these beliefs and you're not addressing them, nothing's going to change. This is why a lot of people have all of these vision boards, and year after year after year, they look at these vision boards and they're saying, but why is this stuff coming? And so they start to believe that you really don't create your reality, and the law of attraction and the law of the universe isn't really real, and you're not really a soul that creates your reality. When in fact that's absolutely true, but there's this missing piece in there that you have these beliefs that are in the way, that are keeping you from raising your vibration, that are keeping you from charging your life force energy and being well, and are keeping you from manifesting the life that you deserve. That's why understanding trauma is very important. But just like Abraham and Bashar have really say, speaking about the event over and over is not very beneficial, because especially if you haven't healed from it, because it makes you re-feel all of that, and it makes you rehearse the vibration again. Right? It makes you rehearse the vibration of feeling something's wrong with you. So if I keep talking about people have used to tease me for being fat, and I still feel fat and I feel unattractive, then every time I bring that up, it's going to make me feel bad about myself. And if I'm not doing the work of feeling better about myself, then I'm just moving through the world feeling worse and worse about myself. And I'm still offering that vibration out into the universe. And so I'm continuing to create more and more and more evidence of that, and more experiences and relationships and events that must affirm that. This is one of the things why I say, why my work is not traditional therapy. Even though I am a proponent of some forms of therapy, I also recognize that there are, and as a person who had therapy when I was younger, there is some issues I have with therapy. And one of the big issues I have with it is this phenomena of continuing to talk about your old wounds, continuing to just talk and talk and talk about them, instead of resolving them and shifting them, and doing the work to embody the truth of yourself. Because what's very helpful is to become aware of what the wound is, right? Okay, I believe there's something wrong with me. I am afraid that I'm not safe in the world. Great. That is powerful awareness, but you don't want to stop there, right? Just to keep talking about that isn't healing. It isn't shifting. It doesn't shift or transform anything, just to keep being aware of how you feel. You want to do the work to feel and believe something different. Right? And you want to do the work of really believing the truth of yourself and beginning to feel a vibration within yourself that mirrors the truth of yourself. So for me, my healing work was to understand that why my diseases had come up in my body was because I, for years, believed that my body was unattractive and unlovable, and something was wrong with it. Because and where it came from was I was teased when I was younger for being a bigger kid, for being a thicker kid. So I was made to feel like my body was unlovable and something was wrong with it. Now, that's all I need to say about that. What I now need to address is the fact that I believe something is wrong with my body. I believe it's not enough, and I believe I'm not lovable and attractive as I am. Now, just continuing to talk about that is not going to help me. What I need to do now is do the work of believing that my body is enough, that I am lovable, that I am beautiful and attractive and worthy of being loved just as I am, without anything needing to change about me. That was the healing work. That was the healing work. But in order to do that, I had to understand what the root cause of my issues were. And the root cause of my issues were the trauma. That is almost always the root cause of any dysfunction, any illness or disease, especially chronic illnesses and diseases. The root cause of it almost always is going to be some trauma, some unresolved trauma. And when you begin to heal the trauma, you begin to heal the issue, the dysfunction, whether it's some addiction that you have, whether it's some, you continue to attract, unfulfilling, painful relationships, or you have issues with money, you don't have enough, you never seem to have enough, or, it's some social conditioning that you received, some limiting social conditioning that you received, or some trauma. And what trauma and limiting social conditioning do when we receive it in our childhood is they make us create a limiting story. And the story that you have, the story that you run about yourself, is what shapes your life. And none of us is born with a limiting story, by the way. Nobody is born with a limiting story. Nobody comes into this physical world, physical dimension, believing that something is wrong with them, believing that the world is not safe, believing that their needs aren't going to be met. When we come in as children, we fully believe that our needs are going to be met. If we're hungry, we're going to be fed. If you look at children, they're so in awe of their bodies. They love their little bodies. They love their little toes. They don't think something's wrong with them. That's something that gets taught to us. That's something that gets socialized in us or traumatized into us, right? So so the thing is, and that becomes your point of attraction. When you start to begin to believe something's wrong with you and you believe you're not safe, then you begin to manifest and attract experiences. You begin to attract experiences, events, and relationships that affirm that for you, that mirror that for you. You begin to manifest a reality that is the mirrored reflection of your story, right? So your story is, so my story was something's wrong with my body. I'm not enough as I am, that it's not safe in the world to be all of myself because of my sexuality. Some people think it's wrong. They think it's sinful. There's something wrong with me. I'm not safe in the world. And so my story was I had to be different. I had to suppress myself. I never could be myself. Something was wrong with me. And so I created this life experience around me that always mirrored that. And when you have a limiting story, and you have a shame and fear-based story, which is what a trauma story really is. It's a shame and fear-based story. That drains the life force energy out of you. Remember, life force energy is your soul's energy. It's literally the tethered line to the universe. So when your body needs your soul's energy, it needs life force energy to stay healthy. And it needs a certain amount of it. And when you begin to drain it and deplete it by holding shame in your being, by holding a lot of fear and offering a life and behaviors that suppress who you really are, you begin to drain that life force energy out of you. And the more you drain, the sicker you're going to become. So this is why trauma is important, but not, again, why the traumatizing event isn't so important. It doesn't matter so much what happened. What matters is how you began, what you started to believe about yourself and how you began to feel about yourself and the world, what you began to believe about yourself and the world after that event. Because that has determined your point of attraction. And that's why what's showing up in your life as your life is showing up in your life as your life. Right? And once you begin to do the work of healing your trauma, you begin to open up. And you begin to open up and receive the type of things you've been dreaming about. Your deepest desires begin to come. Your body begins to heal itself. What's naturally yours, because the universe this is an ask and it's given universe. So as a soul, when you want something, the universe gives it to you, but you only receive it when you're at the frequency of it. And really the frequency of it is you, because it gives it to you. So you have to be at the natural frequency of yourself, which is love and joy. When you have a lot of trauma, you don't exist in the frequency of love and joy a lot. When you have unresolved trauma, you don't exist in that frequency. I see some of you, resolving the root cause of trauma will help shift the wounds into love and joy, manifest higher vibrations. Exactly. And one thing that I learned and what my guys, the beloveds, really have, because a lot of my understanding comes directly from my life experience and then the work I've done and the conversations I've had with my guys, which are the beloveds. There's a lot of conversations out there about raising your frequency and getting a higher frequency. And we think, if you just meditate, you'll do it. If you just walk in nature, you'll do it. And those things are helpful. But what your internal world is literally the determining factor for your frequency. It determines how you vibrate. It determines whether you're going to be high or low in frequency. And if you have unresolved trauma that's running the show, right? And there may be some trauma that it is not as activated in you, right? Because in some spaces, if you're in a space, let's say you believe something's wrong with your body, but maybe you're in a space where you're receiving a lot of compliments all the time, external compliments. And so that makes you feel enough while people are complimenting you. So your feelings of inadequacy are not really activated right then. So your frequency may be high while people are complimenting you. But the moment those compliments stop, your habitual belief about yourself begins to rise back up and it drops your frequency back down, right? So this is really important. So there's a lot of talks about raising your vibrations, but what I found in my own journey, but also in working with many clients around the world is it's really not possible to raise your frequency to the level that it needs to be to really manifest a really delicious life and keep a really delicious life if you haven't resolved your trauma. Your trauma is going to be, it's like the zip code, right? So, wherever it's like, the universe is mailing, when you ask for something, it mails it to, it's like everything keeps coming back to the same address, right? And so, you want to, in order to change your address, if you want a whole new outlook in your world, you want a whole new reality, you want a whole new experience of your life, you've got to change what you believe about yourself and how you feel about yourself and the behaviors that come out of that, right? And in order to do that, you've got to look at what's not in alignment with the truth of who you are. Really, the more you embody the truth of who you are, the more everything's going to work out in your life. The more you feel lovable and loved just as you are, the more you feel safe just as you are, the more you believe and trust that your needs are going to be met and that it's going to be easy to meet them, the more you begin to feel and believe that you're not alone in the world, the more you begin to feel love and loved, it raises your frequency. And the more you hold those beliefs, the more you begin to manifest a world that reflects and affirms that. And the less you believe that, the less you're able to manifest a world that affirms and reflects that. So that's why I speak a lot about trauma. That's why it's very important, but I do not focus on what happened. I really don't. Even when I'm working with clients, I may spend maybe 30 seconds of a session really going into what happened. And the rest of the time, we look at really looking at understanding how this trauma has affected your life, like how it's shaped your life, how it's really been the cause of what's been showing up for you, and what you need to do to reconnect to the truth of yourself and begin to express the true divine being that you are in the world. Because that's what happens when you heal your trauma. You become more of God in the world. You bring more of your God self into the world. You become you. That's what embracing your divinity really is. You hear a lot of people talking about embracing your divinity and becoming more of your divine self. That's what it really is. When you begin to, your belief systems are more in alignment with the truth of your being, right? When you begin to understand and believe that you're loved just as you are and you're lovable and there's nothing you need to do to change. There's nothing you need to do to be loved or to receive love. When you believe that you're safe and you trust life and you don't fear, you begin to release fear from your body and shame from your body. You become a more divine being in the world. You become a higher expression of God in the world. And you begin to attract a life that God deserves. You begin to attract the type of life experience that a divine being deserves. And that's why. So I love this question. I hope I really answered it for you. And I hope all of you all who are watching got something around this, around understanding the importance of understanding what it is. It's not necessarily that you need to go back and keep rehearsing what happened to you, but just become aware of what you actually believe and how you actually feel, especially how you actually feel about yourself. Because what's most important is what you think and what you believe, especially what you think and what you believe about yourself, because that determines your point of attraction. And your point of attraction is kind of the thing that determines what shows up in your life and what shows up as your life, the relationships, the events, the dreams, the desires, all of that. I mean, your point of attraction determines what manifests as your life. And so when you clean up that point of attraction and you raise your frequency, the point of attraction that you have is love and joy based. And so you begin to attract a life that is love and joy based. And if you're experiencing anything less than that, if you're experiencing some challenges and hardships or diseases or illnesses or dysfunctions and addictions, it's not that something's wrong with you. It's not that you don't deserve what you want, because you absolutely do deserve what you want. And there's nothing wrong with you at all. It's just that you've been made somehow to believe that something's wrong with you. You've been made somehow to fear life. and to fear being yourself, and to not trust that life wants to give you what you want, and that life loves you and it's going to meet your needs some type of way. And it's now time to begin to reconnect to that, to do the healing work of reconnecting to that truth, and beginning to live that truth in your life. So, hope this is all helps you all. I have many more questions coming. But yeah, trauma is the wound. It's the wound of disconnection. It's the wound of, it's the wound of disconnection. And the disconnection is somehow something happened that disconnected you from the truth of yourself and from how the real you actually feels, which is happy and loving and loved and safe. Safe, happy, loving, and loved. And so the work is not to just keep rehearsing feeling unloved and unsafe and afraid and worried and untrusting. The healing work is to begin to do the work to trust and to feel loved and to feel happy and to feel loving, and watch how your entire life transforms when you do that. I'm not just saying that because that's something I read in the book. I'm not just saying that because I heard somebody else saying it. I'm saying that's because this is what I lived. This is what my journey was about, and this is why I am who I am today, and this is why I'm here talking about why I'm talking about today. I only share with you things that I lived through and what I know for myself. So hope this is helpful. Thank you very much, all of you. I see all of you all who are posting. Thank you for joining me in these late nights sometimes, or these early mornings, depending on what part of the world you're in. Until next time, much, much love. And remember, everything is possible. Your dreams are probable. And the way and the path to anything that you want, a healing, more money, better life, better sex, better relationships, is to love yourself more. Self-love is always the way. Bye.